Did you go to the boat show and think, had one of them? Yeah, been there, done that. My buddy's, he's got one of them too. Boring. Well, if that was you, if you're the guy or girl who's looking for a new adventure, something probably nobody else has had the guts to try, well then, I might just have the boat for you. My name's Dan Jones. I'm from the boat brokerage, and today I'm on an XO 250 Defender, an absolute weapon of a thing, and I'm going to have a lot of fun presenting this to you. Come with me and let's go for a ride. So it's not hard to get excited about boat tests. I mean, let's face it, this is a pretty cool job I got here, but sometimes you get extra excited. Sometimes you get a product which is absolutely outrageous and just looks like a hell of a lot of fun. I mean, just look behind me. I've got spotlights on this thing. It's just super awesome. So before I get into the walkthrough, a little bit of background about XO. These guys, they are from Finland. There's quite a lot of really unique, super capable boats coming out of Finland, and the XO brand actually has inspired some other very popular brands, which I'm sure you've heard of. But these guys have done things a little bit differently from the beginning. They've always built a boat out of military grade aluminium. These boats really are about capability and just going to the next step, going to the next stage in your boating life. When you have really nailed down your needs, you've got a specific need, you want something super capable that's not going to let you down, that's when you look at an XO. It's rarely your first boat. It's definitely something, someone who's got a complete understanding of how they're going to enjoy their time on the water. What they do, just quickly talking about the construction of these boats, they build a very, very solid deep V cutting bow aluminium hull. And now that will ordinarily equate to a bit of a noisy hull, because aluminium boats, I'm sure you've been in tinnies before, or you know, your regular fishing boats that you see around at the boat show or on the harbour. Yeah, they bash around a little bit and you hear the noise, you hear the water passing underneath the hull. You don't get that experience on an XO because it's thick aluminium, it's completely foam lined, and then the decks or the top sides are all fiberglass. So it's got the feeling of a luxury cruiser, but it has the sound deadening effect as well. And that's important if you really want to step things up and start to get, you know, minute in terms of the detail. But anyway, let's have a little bit of a walk around. We'll start at the bow. I'll just adjust my little thingamy-bob so you can see. Super spacious bow area. Now this one's got this soft flexi-teak decking, as you can see, but up the bow it's absolutely the kind of setup that you could drop off and pick people up at wharfs. In fact, we did that this morning with our cameraman. I've got nice black, you can see lots of black coating around the place in terms of these rails and the cleats. So they look beautiful. I've just hand anchored today. There is no anchor well or locker on this boat. You don't need it. We've got a small anchor, a few meters of chain, and I'll pull it up by hand. It's just not necessary for a boat of this size. But you come back, we've got these stainless steel finish on the navigation lights. Moving back, you can put cushions and turn this area into a lounge spot. One thing that is worth noting are these tie down points here, here, and here. So you can load this up with gear. I'm imagining people taking a boat like this to the Northern Territory because it's the kind of boat that you would do that on. We've got the grab rails, solid size, very, very well fixed down just there. And then on gas struts, this is all storage. So we've got our batteries forward of that. This can actually remove. So if you want to put larger items in here, you don't have to have that partition just there. And you can see I've got some of my gear. I've got the side covers. There's the anchor rope and a few other bits and pieces stored in there. And now just coming around, I'm going to do my best to show you as much of this as possible because it's It's really special. The Defender, hint is in the name, it's got a bit of Land Rover Defender vibes. Now this this cockpit area is solid tubing all the way around, so plenty of handholds. Looks super cool. Like everywhere I've been in this boat, people just stop, look and ask questions, but it's got a practical vibe to it as well. So I'm imagining gun racks, I'm imagining spear guns, I'm imagining surfboards, foiling boards, you name it. Like, you could do all sorts of things using this as a mounting point, go remote and just get adventurous. Like, that's what this thing's all about. As we look on the starboard side just here, these fixing points are actually for a floor heater. Now, we don't have it because this is in Australia, but it is an option. And look, if you were zipping along at high speed, which this thing certainly is capable of doing, you could option that and then just blow some hot air on your feet. So that is there. We've got this nice carbon finish on the front. That's your horn. We've got the windscreen wiper. These awesome headlamps. That's just super cool looking. And this is toughened glass just here. And then I'll start around the top, walk around the decks before I go into the cockpit. We've got this very, very large opening hatch. So this cockpit can be fully enclosed with clears. So if you want, you can then pop the roof for ventilation, but you can also stand and put your head out the roof when you're driving. Working our way across the top here, we've got the Simrad Radar. That's the bee's knees job just there, blacked out aerial. I love how the owner has blacked out all this. He's just done the little bit extras to make everything match, which is so good, so cool. We've got the aft facing lights just here, and moving around onto the rear deck, plenty of space, and the floor level, you got two floor levels. So you got the bow, then you level all the way through the middle of the boat, then you got this one step up. So it is a self-draining deck. We've got scuppers which just go out the back just there, and then we've got this great powder-coated aluminium which is going around both transoms just there, just giving it a solid feel, but obviously there's a practical nature to that as well. Just while I'm here, look at the size of this engine mounting plate. That's just chunky as all hell. This is a 300 horsepower Mercury V8 on the back, and she hauls. But whilst I'm back here, we can see aft cleats as well. This is just going to be a plug-in for, that one's going to be for a flag just there. And then this is another storage bin just here. And that also gives you access down into the aft bilge section of the boat. But it's just another storage locker. We can see our emergency manual bilge pump and a fire extinguisher, and it also has electric fitted as well. So that's a good area for some of your boat systems, because you don't need to put ropes and fenders down in the lockers, because it has its own lovely stack of rope and fender arrangement holders just there. You know, I can even see people putting extra fuel tanks back here, and I believe it is an option to mount them on the front as well. So, you know, once again, it's just adding to the capability of a thing like this. It's got a decent stereo. We've got 6 speakers so that I can see, I'm pretty sure it's 6 dotted around the boat. 1, 2, 3, 4. Sorry, make that 4. But here we go. Like, let's move into the middle of the boat. This is just something else. The cockpit is full race car mode. These seats are wrapped in fiberglass, so they're a solid structure with Silvertex padded seat inside. They go forward and back, and they're on proper suspension setup. So you've got the softness that the hull design provides, and then you have the extra suspension through the seat, and you can sit, stand, and then there's even a standing well, which I'll get to in a second. But there's a lot to talk about here, so we'll try and cover it all. Both seats have flip-up bolsters, so that's up and that's down. And then you have all these grab rails all the way around, and they're just good looking, like lots of places to hold on. And mount things, mount cameras, mount extra bits and pieces. So that's all there. The dash is very sensibly laid out. We have a knick-knack drawer just here, so that's good for phones and wallets and all that sort of stuff. And inside here is your phone charging, so nothing's going to get wet. That's all protected in there. This particular boat has been fitted out with lots of extras. So we've got a VHF just here. We have an autopilot which sits in just there. It's got all the Simrad gear. It's got the bee's knees depth sounder. So we've got really high quality depth sounding, which works when you're at speed. I know a lot of boats of this style, once you go over about sort of 15 knots or so, the aeration under the hulls will stop the depth sounder working. But this one is got a bee's knees set up, so it does work. We've got the chart plotter. We've got all the engine diagnostics as well. The fusion can be controlled from here, but then it also can be controlled from inside the chart plotter display as well. Then we have the trim tabs set up just here. That is got auto and manual functions, so you can just focus on the driving and it'll do that through an inbuilt gyro for you. Key start, but then you also have the button push start, and this is a really ergonomic, well set up, like sensibly laid out helm for when you're driving. So the wheel adjusts up and down like that. This is your throttle base just here. You can rest your hand here. You've got a start, stop, and your other throttle functions here, but it is an electronic, it's a fly-by-wire system. And then you've got your nav lights, your roof lights, your wiper, auxiliary, bilge pump, and horn just there. And underneath is your battery start. So you can do everything from the helm. Now, before I take this thing for a test drive, you still need to see, but wait, there's more. So this, I'm going to stand down here. So I'm going to adjust this little thingamajig so you can see. This gives you the option to stand and drive. So you can stand and stick your head out, or you can stand in the well and really lock yourself in here. Gives you more protection from the wind if that's bothering you, and you really feel quite locked in. So as I was this morning, pounding through quite large surf, there's really pumping surf out to sea today, coming around the corner where it comes into the Sydney Harbour. I was in this locked in position, obviously on the port side at the helm, but felt a lot more secure. It was really nice, fun driving position. Now, if you're in your more moderate conditions, you might just transition to the seat like so, and then you can use that as a foot pad just there, or you can close the floor quite easily and just use it as a storage bin. So whilst there's enough space for all your guests' equipment up in the forward locker, you know, that is another option just there if you find you're going to operate it like so. And if you were standing up, hey presto, even short man like me can see out, so that's good. Comfortable. Now these seats, they slide very, very well. So like at that, I can go all the way back. So there you go. So that's my feet. I'm 5'7", I can't even touch the back now, or I can slide forward, all the way forward, and there's my feet on the footrest just there. So that's comfortable. So you can get yourself feeling nice and secure at the helm, or as a passenger, holding on, locking your feet in and just enjoying the seat suspension as you ride along. So now taking our, but just look at that. I just think those are the sexiest seats. That's just fantastic. Anyway, moving our way into the middle and then the back. This is access and inspection port just to your fuel tank and the middle part of the boat. So that's just giving you access. And then undoing these rubber holders on either side, there's your fridge. So this is an electric fridge. I've actually got my safety grab bag in there at the moment because I'm lazy, but that's an electric fridge. And it's nice and cool, and you've got a control on, off, and temperature up, down, just there. And whilst we're here, let's just check out the seating position for the guests. This is cool. Like, you really feel like you're gonna have a fun time. Look at the view. Like, look at that. That's just got fun written all over it. It's got serious fun though. I really can see people going and doing crazy awesome adventures on a machine like this, you know, just with some foiling surfboards on a custom rack on the roof and just heading off to some remote reef break somewhere and just foiling all day and towing in off this if you needed to, and just getting super out there. Like, I'd love to see it. But obviously, if you are doing those sort of adventures, it's a 4-person boat, because really, you're not going to have many more than that on this. It's not designed for getting huge groups. This is a specific task. It could be a fast commuter, a cool commuter. It could be a date night boat, but it's absolutely just lends itself to those specific, fun, unique activities that only you know you can do with a boat like this. In terms of what it's licensed for, well, in New South Wales, where we are here in Sydney, Australia, 7 people. So you can absolutely take more people out for the day. It's just the question is where you're going to put them if you're going at speed, because this thing will go at speed, and I'm about to show you that. So on that note, I love this. So I'm just going to, hopefully you're going to get this sound. Oh, how good's that? I love these new V8s. It's so throaty. So whilst we're back here, you can see very large, solid aluminium trim tabs. That's a Lenco system just there. And this will all lift up, give you more access, so we can see the hydraulics and the engine loom just there. And there is a swim ladder which pops out on the starboard side. Okay, let's go for a drive. Okay, so I put my jacket on and we're going for a bit of a cruise. Make sure my microphone's plugged in. It is the first day of winter here today, so she's getting a little bit cold. But the wind protection behind the screen here is fine. And as I said, there are side screens which will give you complete enclosure if you so chose. I'm not sure if you really need it in this country, but anyway, that's up to you. We'll first talk about the hull design. I covered it briefly before, but she's a deep V cutting bow. So it doesn't have air steps. Don't really think it needs it. It feels like a moderately heavier boat, built absolutely a lot better than many of the cutting bow boats that I have seen. It's built for a different purpose. Better's probably not the right word. It's just built for a different purpose, and that purpose is whatever the hell you decide it to be. Just cruising along here, I'm in the seated position. I did notice before in the rough waves, I wanted to transition myself to the standing, but you always got something to hold on to. I'm locked in here, but your guests might be able to hold on to the grab rails here, and these seats, you ain't going nowhere in these seats. We're just inside the harbour at the moment, so I'll take the boat through her paces and just talk to you about my experience. First things first, we have the trim tabs. I've got the engine trim. So currently the engine trim is all the way down. I got about 150 litres, 140 litres of fuel on board, and not too much gear, and just myself. So engine down, trim tabs in auto, but they're in the up position. I'm just going to wind the speed up. I was cruising at 30 knots just then, which is about the sort of speed you would do on a boat like this. And I'll just wind her up a little bit. And I can feel those seats giving me a little bit of cushioning effect as I come over some of these waves. I've just got 37 knots there, but it feels like the engine wants to trim up a little bit. So I'm going to do that and just see what happens. There we go, 38, 39. So a couple of degrees of engine trim up. Now I'm going to put that down to the fact that we aren't relying on air steps. We're just relying on deep V hull. So I got 300 horsepower, a little bit extra for some boats comparatively, and that's how we get our speed return. So I'm just nudging 40 knots there, and get a little bit more. So my revs, 40 knots, 41 knots. Woo! Ah, woo! Hello! Yeah, this is good. So, wow, this is good. Geez, this is fun. So she's ripping. I'm doing 41 knots here. A little bit of engine trim up, no trim tabs. And now let's hook it into a turn the other way through the waves. And let's go again. Nice suspension, my bottom feels comfortable. A little bit of engine down, a couple of waves, chop, chop, chop. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, this thing's good. This thing will be a little ocean weapon. This thing will be a great commuter. You're not going to be limited by conditions in this boat. I can hear the seats squeaking a little bit, so they might just need a bit of WD-40, because that would annoy me in time. And so that's the fast stuff, but I think realistically, let's just wind it back to a sensible cruising speed. So I'm just winding the revs down to 4,500 revs. My SOG is 32 knots there. Let's just take the speed down a little bit more. 4,200 revs, 29 knots. Geez, this feels like old man speed in this boat, but it's certainly not. We're doing 29, I just hit 30 knots again. So, yeah, this boat, let me just wind it back a little bit more. Geez, the engine's hardly even working. It just feels like it's plodding along. So that's 3,800 revs. 3,800 revs, I've got 26 knots. So, geez, your fuel burn's gonna be nothing at these revs. So that tells me you could eat up some miles on this boat if you so chose and just sit the thing on mid-20s, 26 knots. I would probably, it feels too slow, I would probably wind it up to about 28, 30 knots, 29, yeah, that feels much more natural there. 29 knots, 4,300 revs. Yeah, no slipping, plenty of grip. Yeah, this is the speed you transit on, I think. And then you've got that extra power to load the boat up with weight, mates, and all your gear, and still maintain those, you know, high 20s, low 30 knot speeds. Or you can just send it and get your 40 knot blasts. I saw 41 knots. I don't really think you're going to get much more than 41 on this hull design, because we're not aerating in the traditional sense in terms of having air channels. We are relying just on the deep V for our comfort through the waves and a little bit extra horsepower. You know, ordinarily you might run a boat this size with say 200 horsepower, but this new Mercury V8, it's the perfect match. Not only it's 300 horsepower, but the power to weight ratio is like class beating on this Mercury 300. So it's a lightweight engine giving you 300 horsepower, and then we can stick it on a 25-foot boat like we are today, and happy days. So let's just try a few transitions. So I'm just going to slow down, put the boat on a cruise, and I'm just going to do the transition. Boom. So I'm actually going to slide the seat back. Yeah. Oh yeah. So now I'm sitting on the bolster. That's a very comfortable position. My visibility is fantastic. I thought these pillars would have gotten in the way a little bit and sort of hindered me on a safety factor, but not at all. Not at all. You find your body's moving around a little bit as you're underway, and the boat's, you know, you're trying to take all the waves head on, so it's really not an issue. So let's try and open I'm just going to slow the boat down a little bit. Let's open this up. Okay. Woohoo! This is cool. All right, this is cool too. I'm not sure which one I favour. I think if it was a cold day, I would want to stand down here because I feel very protected. I think if I was in the ocean and maybe wanting to maintain the highest possible speeds, I would assume this position because the grab handles feel really good. Reaching the throttle and the wheel is good. You can adjust it if you need. It is worth mentioning, if you're a very overweight, not so sporty person, this isn't the boat for you. Sorry, like, I don't know how else to put that, but it's not an overly large, beamy, full of space like some American boats, because that's not the idea. This thing, like, I really can see people, you know, I'm not even a hunter, but for some reason I could see gun racks on the roof. It just feels so appropriate. But, you know, spear guns, other guns, you know, all your water toys. This is for the real super sporty, active adventure people. I can see this towing behind an expedition yacht, you know, going really remote. Just head off to Papua New Guinea and go and catch fish that nobody's ever heard of, or go and scuba dive. Imagine you could load this up with all your scuba gear out the back and just use this as the day expedition awesomeness vehicle. So it's those sorts of people that are going to value a boat like this. If you just want to get out there and laze around, you know, apart from the cool factor, which it has like in spades, it's not going to be super practical for you. All right, let's haul it and go out and find some waves. Oh yeah! Doing that 34 knots. It's not even worth talking about the slow speed because you're just not going to do it on this thing. One thing I did notice when we are talking about slow speeds is she tracks very straight. She's very predictable. It doesn't have a bow thruster, but I would absolutely not get one if it was an option on this boat. It's completely unnecessary. Straight, true and predictable, grab handles all the way around, and it would just be a waste of money. The thing, it's not going to come up in the audio, but it's just such a quiet ride. Like, I can just hear the waves. I've got the beautiful sound of that V8 out the back, and apart from that, I can just hear the waves out the side, or the wash out to the side, and nothing else. The boat just absolutely glides through everything you give it, and there's no weird noises underneath, which you do get on some boats, particularly some aluminium boats. Just sitting on a 38 knot cruise here, trying to get there as quickly as I can because my SD cards are filling up. But yeah, we've had a low pressure system sitting off the southeast portion of Australia for probably about a week and a half now, just throwing in some of the best winter swells that anyone has had this year. So I'm going to see if I can get us into some of those swells and just talk about the experience. Yeah, she's really skipping along now. 42, 43 knots SOG just then. Wow, okay. That's 5,000, 6,000 revs, 5,009, 6,000. I did a little bit more engine trim up. Okay, I thought I wasn't going to get much more than 41. That's interesting. I'll just wind it back a little bit. And I'm just going to adjust to okay, feels safer doing that at 30 knots. So now I've got the seat back. I'm actually going to put the seat forward and the bolster up. Oh yeah, that feels good. Now I'm locked in. Couple of little confused waves here. We're getting out to the sea in a second. Woohoo! Okay. So I'm using my legs to give me some cushioning support. The seat, I'm just leaning on the seat, so it is going up and down somewhat. And I'm just coming in at this at 34 knots. And I'm starting to get into some of these ocean swells. So I'll just back it off until we get a little feel. I've got the trim tabs in auto. I haven't felt the need to manually trim this boat at this stage. We'll see what happens when we get out of here. And here's the Manly ferry going wide. You always know it's a big swell when they do this. We'll go out and around the ferry, I think. Okay, oh yeah. She's eating it up. Okay, first thing's worth noting, we're coming through a couple of meters of rolling swell here and some confused stuff from the boats. I'm sitting on 32 knots and I have not got a drop of water over the bow this whole time. We're moving. I'm sure I could go faster, but you know, I like to keep my breakfast where it is. You're going to be bouncing up and down in any style of hull in these conditions, but I'm maintaining 32 knots, 33 knots just there. I could do this running up the coast in what is not a smooth day and feel safe, secure, and know that I'm going to get there. So I'm going into it. Woohoo! There's a nice big one. Go diagonally over that. Okay, landed off that one. Now I'm going to turn the boat across this swell and I'm going to go down it. All right, now these are big waves. I hope this is coming up on the camera. So much so that that's bouncing around a bit there. So now I've just wound the speed back to 29 knots. I've got confused waves. They're bouncing off the shore and they're coming in from the ocean. So I've got waves with me and against me right now. So I've just wound it back to 28 knots. Now I'm going to assume the seated position and feel locked in there. And I'm actually going to put that seat forward. There we go. Yeah, so like in this sort of conditions, not smooth is what they are. You just slow the thing down a little bit. 27 knots feels a lot more manageable. What I think if you didn't know what you were doing and you wanted to belt this thing through swell like that at full speed and you weren't locked in properly, you might bang your head on the roof or do something silly. And really, it's just going to be operator error. There's nothing wrong with the boat in that scenario. It's just you being a nut. So now it's smoothing out a little bit. I'll open her up again. We'll just skip across some of these waves. Beautiful and smooth. So I'm going to come in here and I'll give you a bit of a wrap up on that because woohoo! Woohoo! Oh my God, this is fun. Yeah! Ah, sick! Wow, that was an experience. What's my wrap up on the XO 250? This thing's amazing. The owner has more than done this boat justice in the way he's fitted it out, cared for her, and you can see this has been purchased by someone who knows what he's doing. It's worth noting that it comes with a custom dual axle trailer built for this boat. It's got a full boat cover and it has an engine cover as well. So this boat has never ever lived in the elements. It always gets cleaned, put away and packed up properly. But if you're the sort of person that's had many boats before, if you have a big boat and you're looking for a crazy capable tender, if you have specific adventures in mind, scuba diving, spearfishing, hunting, fishing in general, surfing, foiling, you name it, this is the boat for you. If it's you and a couple of mates and you want to get out there and do awesome stuff, whether it's here, Bali or Fiji, this is the boat for you. You know, it's just got everything. My name's Dan Jones. I'm from the Boat Brokerage. Hope you enjoy. If you're interested, follow the link in the description below. I'm sure this boat won't last long, but get in touch. I'll be happy to show you through in person or do a digital walkthrough if you're across closed borders. See you on the next one.